G'day everyone, welcome back. Today's video is for the absolute beginner. Maybe you've just made a rocket stove or you've bought one and you've never used it before, you've never lit one. I want to make a video just for you. So if you're an experienced, a seasoned rocket stove user, this video ain't for you. You'll know all this. I'm just sharing the absolute basics, and it's a beautiful, rainy, rainy day. Gotta love the sound of rain on a tin roof. So I'm hoping you can hear me. I'm going to demonstrate all this with my little rocket stove here. Oh, there we go. So the first and most important thing to make sure you have for a successful rocket stove cooking session is the nice dry fallen timber. Don't use treated wood, whatever you do, anything that's dressed. It's potential, unless you are absolutely 100% sure that it ain't treated, you really don't want to use it. It's not worth the risk, particularly when you're cooking with it. I recommend, this is just my recommendation, that you use stuff that's fallen off trees as God intended it. Okay? And the most important thing you're going to need is some decent kindling. This is off a paperbark tree. I'm blessed to have one of those growing in my front yard, so I have an ample supply of that. You need a few different medium sizes of fuel. You need some really light stuff to get things going. A little bit bigger, a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger. And you progressively work your way through your sizes as you cook. You don't have to set it up like this like I have. I'm just doing this so it's easy to see. Unless you're really OCD, right? And you just have to, you know, that's cool. Whatever. I am mildly OCD, so I understand. It's all good. So you will need some basic fire lighting skills, which is surprisingly not as common as you would perhaps think. And this is a little bit different too. It's really funny to give one of these to someone who's never used a rocket stove before and see, don't tell them a thing, and just see how they try to light it. And you know what most of them do? They put the fuel in the bottom, or they jam it in the top and try to light it from the top. And of course it's a disaster. It just doesn't work that way. You're not going to, you fill this thing up with fuel and try to light it, and there is nowhere for the air to go. How these things work, and again, this is for the beginner, I'm sorry if you're familiar with all this, is fuel goes in the top half of the combustion chamber. This is called the combustion chamber. The bottom is just for air. And the fire happens right here, right in this part here. I mean, it's not a good thing if it's burning here, because at that point you're not getting the airflow. You want the fire to be happening right in there. And as the fire goes up, we have convection, hot air rises, which pulls cold air through the bottom and up through, that's not cold, it pulls air through the bottom, and it's kind of like gently, consistently blowing on a fire. You know when you blow on a hot coal and it gets it hot? That's what you're achieving here to a lesser degree, which is why it's important to have a decent stack on the top, so you've got some draw, you've got some pull through. If this is too short, you're not going to have enough draw, and it just doesn't work as well. You have more smoke, and you can light a fire and it'll burn, but you know, getting the balance of the size of this right is important. Something else just to mention, the feet on this puppy get hot, as will yours, and so lighting it on a plastic picnic table like this one, not a good idea. It will melt down into it, and it'll not ruin the table, but yeah, it'll be interesting. You don't want to do it, all right? Okay, time to light a fire. Now straight up, I'm going to show you my favorite way of lighting a rocket stove, because when you're out camping you usually have these two things with you, and that's some sort of a cooking oil and some toilet paper, right? Roll it up. However, tip some olive oil on it, and the olive oil works as a fuel, and this works like a wick in a candle. It burns for, I don't know, 3 to 4 minutes, which is plenty time to get your kindling going, and you know, if you want a real smoke-free experience when lighting a rocket stove, it's helpful to use something like this, whether it be a bit of toilet paper, or I've seen people use cotton wool balls with some sort of a cooking oil on it. They work great too. Probably even better than this. You can light those with a ferrous rod. This requires a match. But I'm going to go all out hardcore, not really, and we're just going to light it with just basic kindling and stuff. Everything's just a little bit... Oh, look at that. Look at that. Okay. That's hilarious. Harry, I'm trying to light that. And dropping that match in the top has got it going already. Now the point of this is what I'm trying to do is get a small coal base established, and I'm trying to get the rocket stove hot. It takes maybe between 3 to 5 minutes, depending on what fuel you're using, to get the stove up to temperature, if you like. Once wood gets to a certain temperature, and I think it's about about 400 degrees, you start getting wood gasification. And that's when it really starts going well. See how we've got this nice flare happening at the top now? That's a really good sign. That means that the stove is now actually sort of getting around where you want it to be as far temperature wise. And this is where it gets really easy. And it's around about now. Once your stove is up to temperature, that's when I normally start cooking. Just because it just becomes a whole lot easier. The initial part is sort of the trickiest bit. Just getting the whole thing hot, making sure you have enough kindling is really the key. Lots of small stuff, more than what you'd think, because it just is easier to get the fire going with smaller wood, like fine twigs and sticks. Now that we're sort of at a reasonable temperature, you can start using this heavier stuff. And if things seem to die down, you just grab another stick and push it in. Fire is its happiest when it's well fed, a bit like me. So our fire is lit, and from here on in, it's just a matter of just occasionally giving everything in there a bit of a shove, a bit of a push, keeping it all the fuel towards the back wall of the stove, and that's pretty much it. For a sort of a hot heat, you just keep using this smaller sort of stuff. I find that gives the hottest burn. For a sort of a slow cook, just up your size to something about this. I use my thumb as a reference. I wouldn't ever go anything larger than that. I find it just doesn't work well. This thing is supposed to run on biomass, which is like the small stuff that falls off trees, and it just doesn't like bigger things. It runs better on the small stuff, and it runs well, like surprisingly well. Now this wood is damp. It's not sopping wet, but it has been raining here for the last couple of days, and so it's okay to give the stove the kiss of life. This is what I mean. The one thing I'd recommend is don't wait until a blackout or you're actually out camping to be the first time you ever like this thing. Mess around with it at home. Play, you know, this is one of those things where the more you use it, the more comfortable you become, the less anxious you're going to be when using it. And it's best to do that at home and not when you're out camping and just wanting to have a good time and a good experience, because it does take practice to run these things well. They are a little bit tricky, there's no doubt about it, but in saying that, it's a good skill to have, to be able to control and light a fire and keep it all running. I really enjoy the challenge of it. The gas barbecue now is quite frankly boring compared to this. But I hope this was interesting and not too and I didn't waffle on too much. As I said, this video is for the absolute beginner, someone who's just built one, just bought one, and wants to know how to run it. This is the video I would have been looking for when I first started anyway. Thanks for watching. I'll see you later.